Welcome back to the second lecture of this public policy analysis class. I hope you enjoyed the first one. I did. It was a wonderful experience to be in front of the camera and talking to you all. Before we go on to discuss the second lecture, or to cover the stuff in the second lecture, let us first discuss a little bit about what we covered in the first one. So here's a brief summary of what we learned in the previous class. Well, first of all, we went through the definition of public policy. Public policy hai kya? And that included, if you remember, the definition of words like public and policy, and if you combine them, what exactly does it mean? Then we went through some of the definitions of public policy, and we learned that there is no one concise definition of public policy. Public policy को हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि एक उसकी कोई definition है. And then we went through the many reasons that there is no one specific definition of public policy, and one of the reasons was that it covers so many things from so many different educational things. I shouldn't say educational thing. Pause. It covers so many things from different subjects that it's difficult to say that it's limited to one subject or it's specifically one subject of choice. No, it isn't. For example, I gave you some examples from economics, some examples from political science. We covered, if you remembered, a few things about the I shouldn't say prehistorical, but some of the historical material related to the public policy. And some of the writings date back to Aristotle and, as I said, Chanakya. And they were like thousands of years old. They didn't relate to one field. They discussed everything from statecraft, from foreign policy, to economics, and how to go about the administrative affairs of a country. So, as I said, there is no concise definition of public policy because it covers so many things. You might come up with a different definition, I might come up with a different definition. It all depends upon the perspectives one has. Then we went through why study public policy, and some of the discussions and the problems that are unique to Pakistan we face, and there are quite a few. Look, it offers you a world of opportunities. We all live in an integrated world. You cannot say that the policy implemented over here in the official circles won't have any effect on the people living in other parts of Pakistan. Suppose people living in Karachi or the interior of Sindh or the federally administered tribal areas. We cannot say, or we cannot assume that a policy dealing with issues that are faced with those people, policy made over here won't have any effect over there. In fact, it does. It does have a lot of effect. Anybody who has gone through the history of Pakistan would testify to that. So, if you are an incentive in studying a public policy, is that you come face to face with problems that are really hampering Pakistan and that are really relevant to people. One of the things that we went through was that, let's say you want to improve something. Let's say you want to improve upon a policy and come up with something good. Then you need an analysis of it. You need the history of the problem. You need to go through what happened, who were the players involved, what were the variables, and why it failed, if it failed. Remember, I think we discussed the Neelam Jhelum hydropower project. And as I said, it was conceived in 1988, I believe. And till now it hasn't been completed. With lots of cost overruns and administrative problems. So when you are faced with this kind of problem, now that project was conceived somewhere over here in the Ministry of Water and Power, known as WAPDA, at the but look, it affects all of Pakistan, because if you notice, when you receive your electricity bill, you'd probably have a column in it saying Neelam Jhelum hydropower surcharge. Now remember that, as I said, you might not even be connected, you might not even know about the project. We are not directly connected to it, but a policy made over here in an institution of the government, it affects you too. So we need to study it, we need to know about it, why a specific policy is affecting us and what should be done about it. So there's an incentive for you, for everybody, to study public policy. World of opportunities for public policy analysts. Our problems are unending, you can say. जब आप पाकिस्तान को देखते हैं, पाकिस्तान की बात करते हैं, तो ऐसा लगता है कि मसाइल जो हैं वो ख़त्म होने वाले नहीं. हर रोज़ एक नया मसला खड़ा हो जाता है, हर रोज़ एक नया मसला जो है वो हमारी ज़िंदगी पे असरअंदाज होता है. तो one of the reasons that you want to go and study public policy, you want to understand this stuff is कि जहाँ पे मसला एक खड़ा होता है वहाँ पे एक opportunity भी होती है. If there is a problem, it needs a solution, and that solution comes by analyzing a public policy, whether what kind of policy should be implemented to deal with the problem, that specific problem, and what should be done if there has been a policy before. Why did it fail? Why did it not work? So remember, there is a world of opportunity for you, and there are lots of people, there are now millions of people working in this sector, the public policy sector. World over, I went through some of the job searches for public policy, looked at the profiles of the people, and remember, even in very good institutions like, let's say, donor institutions of some caliber, UNDP, World Bank, DFID, you would see that this specifically asks for those people who can go through a policy, a public policy, who can analyze it, who can recommend something, who has experience in that field. For example, one of the most common or one of the most sought after public policy analysts are the ones who deal with education and health. That seems to be very high on the agenda of donor agencies. Not just, I shouldn't say just donor agencies, but in fact even the government. Whenever you see an advertisement or whenever they are hiring people, quite a lot of it, that is what at least I have observed, quite a lot of it deals with a public policy related to education and health. So I'm not saying that you might necessarily go just that way, but I'm just saying that there are a world of opportunities waiting for those who go through this stuff, who learn this stuff, who know how to go about it, and has the tools to analyze a public policy. Then we went through, after that we went through some of the common themes in public policy. What kind of commonalities do they share? Again, as I said, it's such a vast world of material that it's difficult to point that this is common to this, this is common to public policy, and this is not common to public policy, this is something outside. No, but again, it depends upon the respective perspective of an individual, how he or she sees a policy. Is it for the public, is it for not? Should it be included in public policy, or should it just be sidelined because it doesn't deal with public? Depends upon the perspectives. And last but not the least, we went through a brief history of the literature on public policy. We went through, I discussed some of the earliest literature in the form of Aristotle and Chanakya, the books that they wrote and what they dealt with. Then we gradually come over to the age of nation states, where we find books like The Wealth of Nations, Leviathan, and other books written by such philosophers as John Locke, Rousseau, that deal with these questions. I told you about the wealth of nations, Adam Smith. Adam Smith is known as the father of modern economics. What he wrote in his treatise, The Wealth of Nations, it was basically about public policy that deals with how you can make a nation happy by following specific economic policies. Now, his most of what he wrote was about free trade, not free trade actually, but about the pursuit of such policies with as little government intervention as possible that would lead to a happy outcome, that would lead to overall rise in the output of an economy, that would lead to overall generation of more jobs and the accumulation of more income, which of course translates into more wealth for a nation and its residents. So here you had a policy which affected all people, and Smith was pretty good at it. Obviously, his treatise, although written in 1776, is even very popular even nowadays. People still study it, people still go through it. It's a wonderful treatise. Don't go through it though. It's very difficult English. Try to get hands on a simplified version of what he had to say. It's very good. It's very nice. You'd be amazed what he said 200, 250, 300 years ago. It's very much applicable to today's world too, today's economies too. So with that, we come to the second lecture, the stuff that we'll cover in it. So let's start with a modern theory of public policy. As I said, you can go back to times of Aristotle and say that public policy started over there, which is true. But what are the underpinnings of a modern public policy? जो आजकल हम कहते हैं कि एक जदीद पब्लिक पॉलिसी और उसके जो मॉडल्स हैं वो कहाँ से शुरू होते हैं? That work is traced to a 20th century man known as Henry Lasswell. Now, Henry Lasswell was a propagandist. Here is another new dimension for you of public policy. Public policy में propaganda भी आता है. This is a public policy too. And propaganda basically is the spread of information in favor of the government. During the Second World War, when the Germans were very successful at propagating their image about their country and what they were doing, I'm sure you must have heard of Henry Goebbels. If you haven't, do search him. And he was a genius when it came to propaganda and the spread of information. That guy was a master in that. So he was probably the first one who used propaganda as a very effective tool of public policy. Once the other nations, the opposing nations, the allied nations saw that Germans were pretty successful at it, so they had their own people who started churning up their own propaganda against the other nations like Germany and Japan, who were on the opposing side. Henry Lasswell was one of them. Henry Lasswell, once the war was over, he began a policy that he advocated a policy that there should be policy sciences. He named it policy sciences. He said that, look, you need to come up with policy sciences in the light of experiences from the Second World War, what we have learned through it. What Henry Lasswell saw was that there is a bit of a gap between theory and application. He wanted to bridge that gap. Henry Lasswell advocated a few characteristics of public policy, what he called policy sciences. And the characteristics were as follows. They are any policy sciences like public policy, It is problem oriented, meaning that you have to know the problem and then you can come up with the solution. जैसा कि मैंने अभी आपको कहा कि हमारे अनगिनत मसाइल हैं, पहले एक मसले को उजागर करना है, बताना है कि मसला है क्या, और फिर उसके हल की तरफ आना है. That's problem orientation. Define the problem. Second thing, it's multidisciplinary. I believe we've discussed this in detail by now, that it covers a lot of ground. Public policy covers a lot of subjects and a lot of ground. That's what Henry Lasswell realized, that it's not just one subject that public policy can be said to cover, only that this is the particular subject that we are going to cover in this policy. His experience told him that you can make use of many of the researches that are happening in various fields. You can, like propaganda. Now, propaganda has a lot to do with psychology. How you impress upon the people your own view of what you think and why you are good and your opposer is bad. I'm sure आप सब ये चीज़ रियलाइज करेंगे, और हर रोज़ देखते हैं कि कोई एक पार्टी होगी, वो अपने आप को साबित करने के लिए एक प्रोपेगेंडा करेगी कि हमने ये किया, हमने वो किया, और दूसरे को गलत साबित करने के लिए कहेंगे कि जी ये जो है इन्होंने ये किया और ये नहीं किया, और उन्होंने सब गलत किया, हमने सही किया. That is the normal standard operating procedure in Pakistan. The main aspect is that it tries to affect your psyche, tries to win over your mindset about a specific view. So what Henry Lasswell and the United States were doing, and as well as the allied nations, those who were with the United States during World War II, what they were trying to do is that impress upon the people of especially of Europe, that what the Germans are saying is wrong and what they are doing is wrong, and what we are doing is right. Our view is the right one. So it not only covered the discipline of information, it also covered psychology, and it also covered other stuff. So it's multidisciplinary. Third aspect for Henry Lasswell was that this is a methodologically sophisticated science. Meaning कि आप वो एक simple analysis जो कहते हैं कि यार बस ये हो गया, इधर ये मसला है, बस इसका ये हल निकालें. Henry Lasswell said कि it's not so simple. You need to come up with sophisticated techniques to deal with these kind of problems. For example, in Henry Lasswell's time, they came up with the cost-benefit analysis, which we will study later in the course. Cost-benefit analysis basically deals with the total cost, monetary and non-monetary, and the benefits, again monetary plus non-monetary, of a specific decision, of a specific policy. Henry Lasswell was of the view that it's not so simple that you just put cost on one side and the benefits on one side. There are many things that you just cannot observe or you just cannot quantify. So you need sophisticated methods to come up with a good analysis. The world is not so simple. And I'll give you one example. I don't know how many of you have studied economics, but when you study economics, especially at the master level, you'd come across econometrics. Now, econometrics is the application of statistical and mathematical methods to economic principles. They are a sophisticated technique that were born after World War II, at the time when Henry Lasswell was advocating policy sciences. Now, if you are stating something in economics, it's simple. You can say that the cost of this thing is this, and the benefit that accrues to somebody of an economic policy is this. In the real world, there are always trade-offs. We'll go through what trade-offs are, but just for the sake of discussion, just for understanding this point, we'll just say there are trade-offs, and if you are to study those trade-offs, which cannot necessarily be quantified or monitored properly, you need to come up with sophisticated techniques. What the economists do is that they go through these tests, the econometrics tests. They would put a specific model through econometric testing to come up with some estimates of what the output of a policy has been, and was it successful, was it good, what did it do when we look at it in terms of quantity. The last point was that it's theoretically sophisticated, which is pretty much this point as the it's connected to the previous point we just discussed, that it's not as simple as just black and white. The world today that we live in is more complicated, and if you follow a specific policy, you might not imagine that there might be an unwanted outcome of it, good or bad, that's another thing, but you might not imagine what the total outcome would be. When you are trying to implement, when the governments are trying to implement a policy, there are side effects. Suppose I give you the example of industrialization. Now, people are all for industrialization. I am too. Fine, इंडस्ट्री ज़रूर लगाएं, अच्छा है, रोज़गार के मौके पैदा होंगे, क्यों नहीं होंगे, लेकिन उसके साथ ये भी आप देखें कि उसका एक साइड इफ़ेक्ट भी है, and the one that we are witnessing right now with full force, कि जहाँ पे भी इंडस्ट्रीज़ लगाई गई हैं पाकिस्तान में, वो अपना सारा जो फुजला है या जिस तरह कीमियाई मादा हो गया जो कि इंतहाई मुज़र सेहत है, उसको या तो उधर ही ज़मीन में फेंक देते हैं, जिसकी वजह से ज़मीनें और फसलें ख़राब होती हैं, या फिर उसको नहर में पानी में बहा देते हैं, विच इज़ वेरी वेरी डेंजरस. इनफैक्ट एक महीने पहले एक वाक़या हुआ था कि डेरा इस्माइल ख़ान में नहर में नहाते हुए कुछ लोग जो हैं वो फौत हो गए थे. पता चला कि पास ही जो फैक्ट्री है वो अपना सारा फुजला, जिसमें कीमियाई मादा भी शामिल था, इंतहाई मुज़र सेहत, वो नहर में फेंक रहे थे. Nobody noticed it. Now government or whoever established a factory over there or industry over there most probably did it with a good intention, but the final outcome wasn't that good. So you need a sophisticated theory that captures all these elements. If you are talking about the theory of industrialization, it just shouldn't end at how to establish an industry and how to run it, what are the costs and what are the benefits. It should also include the environmental variables too, that what would be the cost to the environment of establishing a certain industry, a specific industry. Let's move on. You need to differentiate between policy evaluation, policy analysis, and policy process. This is important. If you these are three specific categories. There might be some overlap in it, but they are separate. You cannot treat one as part of the other. You have to talk about, when you have to talk about them, you have to talk about them separately. Policy process. क्या होता है policy process? This is how and why of policy making. In simple terms, अगर मैं एक सादा अल्फाज में कहूँ कि क्यों पॉलिसी प्रोसेस क्यों इनिशिएट किया जाए, क्या वजह है, हमें कोई पॉलिसी चाहिए, क्यों, अगर चाहिए तो क्यों चाहिए, इसका प्रोसेस क्या होगा. I believe we talked about identifying the problem orientation. This is more related to the problem orientation. You have to identify the problem, and then say, and when you are identifying the problem, then come up with how and why. Why is this problem there in the first place, and how to go about it, how to deal with it. The second aspect over here, policy analysis. What we will do in this course primarily. It's concerned with carrying out a policy and its empirics. Empirics means numbers. So what you're doing over here and what we'll be doing over here in policy analysis is that we will be coming up with trying to come up with specific numbers on the outcomes of policy. Once the policy is implemented, what are the outcomes in short run, in medium term, and what we expect the policies to come up with, or to what kind of numbers do we expect from the policies in the long term. Now mind you, this is not just for the present day policies or the ones that we've just implemented. You can go through the historical examples too, and there are quite a few. We will go through quite a few, and we will see that once you do the analysis, you can come up with the problems that those policies encountered, where the problems were they administrative in nature, were they financial in nature, were they political in nature, were they institutional in nature, what were they? That's part of policy analysis. You come up with numbers then at the end of it, that look, this is what we got from this policy in terms of quantifiable numbers that makes a policy success or a failure, or partially successful or partially failure. The last one, policy evaluation. There's ex post exercise, kind of overlaps with policy analysis. Ex post exercise means once that thing is done. So once you've implemented a policy, you have gone through it, you've spent the money, you've completed the project, you've completed the policy, then it's time for policy evaluation. All right, so what happened with this policy? Was it good? Was it bad? Did it improve the welfare of the people? Did it not? And any observed causal relationship. Did we observe a causal relationship in it? That what causes what? Did government's action cause something? Or was it the action of the people that caused the government to intervene or to design a specific policy? That's part of policy evaluation. That is a very important part of overall public policy. Remember that in the first lecture I told you that we are going to go through quite a few examples, real world examples. They would be from Pakistan and they would be from the world. Now that we've talked about public policy, and I hope by now that you're not bored of my just talking and talking and talking. So what I've done over here is that I've attached a podcast it's an audio clip. It's about a specific policy that was passed by the United States Congress, but turned out to be a bad one. It's about a 20-minute podcast. Please do listen to it. It's a very interesting one. It's titled, "Why the US Mint Forbade the Production of Presidential Coins." You'll definitely go through the podcast. I hope so. But let me just discuss it a little bit in order to give you some background of it. But mind you, I'm just discussing this thing in brief. I'm not discussing this thing in detail. You'll have to listen to the podcast. And I might even post question on the homeworks relating to podcast. So be sure to listen to it. जो मैं अभी आपको ऑडियो टेप सुना रहा हूँ, जो कि इस लेक्चर्स के साथ ही आपको मिल जाएगी, वो एक पॉलिसी के बारे में है. अभी तक तो मैं बात सिर्फ करता रहा हूँ कि पॉलिसीज इस तरह, पॉलिसी की तारीख ये थी, पॉलिसी इस तरह इम्प्लीमेंट होती है. लेकिन अब जैसा कि मैंने आपको कहा था पहले लेक्चर में कि हम बहुत सी ऐसी मिसालें हैं जिनको हम देखेंगे कि जो कि रियल वर्ल्ड में, जो कि आज दुनिया में इम्प्लीमेंट हुई हैं. लेकिन उसका नतीजा क्या निकला, ये देखने की बात है. अब मैं जिस पॉडकास्ट की बात कर रहा हूँ, जिस ऑडियो कन्वर्सेशन की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, ये यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स अमेरिका की हुकूमत की एक पॉलिसी थी जो कि कांग्रेस ने पास की थी, और उसका नतीजा अच्छा नहीं निकला. नतीजतन उनको ये पॉलिसी तर्क करनी पड़ी, बंद करनी पड़ी। इस पॉडकास्ट को ज़रूर सुनिएगा, इसमें से सवाल भी आ सकते हैं होमवर्क्स पे या एग्जाम्स पे। जब मैं whenever I post a podcast or a lecture, sorry, not lecture but any of the reading material, be sure to go through it thoroughly and try to understand the aspects of it. I'm pretty sure that you'd see a few questions, not a lot, but a few questions from these on your homeworks or even your exams. So be sure to go through this. Okay, so what was the policy about? So what the United States Congress did a few years back, what it did was that it passed a resolution for the printing of coins, metallic coins, that carried the picture of various United States presidents. So part of it, as you can understand, was information dissemination. They were trying to inform the public of their ex-presidents who had done well for their country, who at least the US Congress thought deserved a mention. So their way of going about this was informing public and making them remember about their ex-presidents who had done so well for their country, was that print coins that had their picture embossed on it. Now, fine. That is all fine, but then they had to close it down. The reason they had to close it down was that they gave an incentive to people that they could buy it any way they like. Now, what the people over there started doing was that they started buying those coins with credit cards. That's fine. Credit and debit cards, they are used for buying. There's nothing wrong with it. But the reason that they were doing it specifically with debit and credit cards was that they were acquiring flyer miles. I don't know if you've ever heard of flyer miles or not, but it's what it basically is, that it's an incentive that if you use the credit card of a bank, any specific bank, they give you a bonus. They give you a bonus in the form of different things. One of the thing is flyer miles. That if you suppose spend 100 rupees, 1000 rupees, then you get 50 points. And if you keep accumulating those points, if they reach say 1000 points or 2000 points, then you can take a free trip on an airplane, suppose from Islamabad to Karachi. That's what flyer miles are. So what the people in United States started doing was that they started buying all those coins, not with cash, but with credit cards and debit cards. And they spent billions of dollars on buying those coins. Now they were not buying those coins for keeping them with themselves. What they would do is that once they would spend money and buy those coins, they would just go and deposit those coins, which were in a plastic bag, a roll of a plastic bag, big roll. They would just go over to the banks and deposit that money over there and ask for cash instead of those coins, which they'll get. There is no stoppage, or there is no such regulation that forbids the banks on exchanging coins for notes or notes for coins. So what happened was that banks started accumulating lots of coins, those that were printed by the United States Mint. You have Pakistan Mint too, that prints all those coins and notes. So what happened was that what the banks then did was that they would send over those to the central bank, and central banks started accumulating so many coins, because all the people were doing was that buying those coins, and then they would just deposit it at the bank and get paper notes for it. They started accumulating so many coins that it became difficult for them to store them. They were running out of place. Remember, storage also costs you. You have to pay for the storage too. So once they realized that this saying is getting out of hand, we don't have any much space, they requested the mint to stop printing those coins because they were of no use. They were just sitting there. People would buy them with credit and debit cards and they would just return them. They wouldn't use them for buying anything. They were not circulating in the economy. They were just lying there in the storage doing nothing. So they stopped that policy. One other aspect of this policy, the bad aspect of this policy, was that it started causing financial loss to the airlines. So they came to the government, they requested them to stop this because people were accumulating billions of flyer miles and they were flying for free, which caused financial losses to the already stressed airlines. So they also asked the government that please stop this thing because it's causing us financial harm. We'll go bankrupt if it continues on like this. So they did stop printing those coins. Now, they stopped it. They had implemented a policy and then they did away with this policy. But in this process, the damage was caused. All those coins, millions of them, I don't remember the exact number. You'd probably listen to it in the podcast. There are thousands of coins. And they're lying there in the vaults of the central bank, occupying the storage spaces, lots of storage space. And there is no use for it. Nobody wants them. So here's a public policy for you, a real world public policy, a very recent one. ये कोई पुरानी public policy नहीं है, which turned out to be harmful. There were a few actors that benefited. The ones who benefited were people who accumulated lots of flyer miles and flew free for some time by acquiring thousands of those frequent flyer miles. But who was on the receiving end? नुकसान किसका हुआ? Government and the airline industry. Government का नुकसान ये हुआ कि वो सारे coins उधर पड़े हुए हैं, सिक्के उधर पड़े हुए हैं, उसका कोई इस्तेमाल नहीं, कोई डिमांड नहीं है उसकी. They had called upon people to buy those coins and use them, but they didn't. It wasn't very successful. So they are just lying there. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of storage. It's a waste of precious resources. Then you had the airline people, the airline industry, who came up and said that we are being hurt with this policy. Now, as I said in my lecture, if you remember, that there are a few unimagined consequences when somebody designs a policy. It's not in their mind that perhaps this thing is going to happen too. Now, when the United States Congress passed this policy, I am sure it was not on their minds that people are going to start doing this. So, but in the end, it turned out that indeed that was what was happening. And people were doing this, and it was harmful, overall harmful for the private sector, the airline industry, and for the government too. So they stopped it. एक ऐसी पॉलिसी की मिसाल हमने देखी जो कि अमेरिका की कांग्रेस ने पास की. ख्याल उनका अच्छा था, लेकिन पता चला कि पॉलिसी के जो बुरे असरात हैं वो ज़्यादा हैं. अब उसका नतीजा ये निकला आखिर में, जब पॉलिसी उन्होंने बंद की, उस वक्त तक ये हो चुका था कि जितने भी उन्होंने ये सिक्के मैन्युफैक्चर किए थे यूएस मिंट में, वो पड़े हुए हैं, किसी इस्तेमाल के नहीं है. जगह उन्होंने घेर की रखी हुई है क्योंकि अच्छे खासे कॉइन्स हैं वो, और उसकी उनको कीमत भी अदा करनी पड़ती है यूएस गवर्नमेंट को स्टोरेज की. और फिर एयरलाइन इंडस्ट्री का ये नुकसान हुआ कि लोग जो है धड़ाधड़ उन्होंने फ्लायर माइल्स जो हैं वो हासिल करना शुरू किए, तो वो मुफ्त सफ़र करने लगे अच्छे खासे लोग. तो इस चीज़ का जब उनको इदराक हुआ कि ये पॉलिसी जो है इसका तो हमें उल्टा नुकसान हो रहा है, तो उन्होंने भी गवर्नमेंट को कहा कि इस पॉलिसी को मुनक़ता किया जाए, इसको बंद किया जाए क्योंकि ये नुकसानदेह है. अब यहाँ पे आप ये देखिए कि फ़ायदा सिर्फ कुछ लोगों का हो रहा था, अवाम में भी कुछ ही लोग थे. हर किसी के पास ये ताकत नहीं होती कि वो क्रेडिट कार्ड हो या डेबिट कार्ड हो और वो इतना खर्चा कर सके. तो उसमें सिर्फ एक مخصوص تعداد تھی جن کو فائدہ ہو رہا تھا, جو کہ اپنا کریڈٹ اور ڈیبٹ کارڈ استعمال کر کے وہ کوائنس خرید رہے تھے, لیکن پھر وہ بینک لے جاتے تھے, ان کو کوائنس کو استعمال نہیں کرتے, بینک لے جاتے تھے, اس کی جگہ نوٹ لے لیتے تھے. فائدہ ان کو یہ ہو رہا تھا کہ جتنا وہ خرچہ کرتے اس کی جگہ ان کو وہ فریکوینٹ فلائر مائلز جو ہے وہ پوائنٹس کے اس سے حساب سے ملتے تھے. نقصان ہو رہا تھا حکومت کو اور انڈسٹری کو ہو رہا تھا. اب جو انڈسٹری کو نقصان ہو رہا تھا, اس چیز کو انہوں نے, یہ چیز ان کے ذہن میں نہیں آئی تھی جس وقت یہ پالیسی پاس کی جا رہی تھی. یہ جو میں نے کہا کہ جو بندہ امیجن نہیں کرتا, جس کی سوچتا نہیں ہے کہ اس کا ایک یہ نقصان بھی ہو سکتا ہے, یہ فائدہ بھی ہو سکتا ہے, نقصان بھی ہو سکتے ہیں, پالیسی کے فوائد بھی ہو سکتے ہیں, تو اس کا ایک یہ نقصان بھی نکل آیا جس کو سوچا نہیں گیا تھا. کہنے کا مقصد, اس پوری چیز کو بیان کرنے کا مقصد یہ تھا کہ پالیسیز جو ہوتی ہیں, پبلک پالیسی, عوامی پالیسیز جو ہوتی ہیں, اس میں کچھ چیزیں جو ہیں وہ تو ہم لوگ سوچ سکتے ہیں, ہم لوگ اتنی سوچ رکھتے ہیں, ہم لوگ امیجن کر سکتے ہیں کہ یہ چیز, اس سے ہم ایک توقع رکھتے ہیں کہ یہ فوائد ہوں گے یا یہ ان کا نقصان ہو سکتا ہے. لیکن ساری چیزوں کو اکٹھا کرنا کہ ان کا کیا نقصان ہو سکتا ہے, کیا فوائد ہو سکتے ہیں, یہ کسی تھیوری کے لیے ممکن نہیں ہے, اور ابھی تک میرے خیال میں ہوا بھی نہیں ہے, شاید ایسی کوئی تھیوری ابھی آئی بھی نہیں ہے. There are so many facets of implementation and human action that are not visible to the human eye. So we are only capable of capturing those that we can observe. So that was one lesson in policy making. And I'm sure as we go on, you're going to get a lot more examples of what has been going on in these parts of the world, around the world and in Pakistan. And I'm sure it would be enjoyable too. But again, go through the podcast, listen to it carefully. یہ کوئی وہ بورنگ قسم کی پوڈ کاسٹ نہیں ہے کہ وہ بس شروع ہوا, دو لوگ بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں فلاسفر ٹائپ کے اور وہ گفتگو کر رہے ہیں ایک گھنٹے تک اور بندہ آخر میں بور ہو جاتا ہے. نو, اس تقریباً 20 منٹ کی گفتگو میں آپ کو میوزک بھی سننے کو ملے گی, اور جو پریزنٹرز ہیں دے آر ویری انفارمل, بالکل جس طرح دو دوست آپس میں بات کر رہے ہوتے ہیں, بالکل اسی طرح بات کر رہے ہیں. سو آئی ہوپ یو انجوائے دیٹ پوڈ کاسٹ. لیٹس گو تھرو دا ماڈلز آف پبلک پالیسی. فرسٹ آف آل, دیر از دس کوشچن, وائی از دیر اے نیڈ فار اے ماڈل؟ کیا ہمیں کسی ماڈل کی ضرورت ہے؟ کیا کرنا کیا ہم نے کسی ماڈل کے ساتھ؟ In simple words, we need a model to investigate and explain a particular phenomenon that is true of every investigative science or art. It's humanity's attempt to make the lives of its people better by a better understanding of the environment around it through models or modeling. So, once I try to come up with a model, once a researcher tries to come up with a model, what he or she is trying to do, in short, is that he or she is trying to understand the environment and the variables around that in that environment that tend to affect decision making, that tend to affect our lives in a better way. That is a model. That is the essence of the model. Trying to make those things better, and try to come up with the stuff that is improvement on the previous models. That's what modeling is about. Just like fields of physics and mathematics, there is a need for conceptualizing, observing, analyzing, and discussing public policy. Models represent a conceptual framework. Models کوئی practical framework نہیں ہے, یہ ایک conceptual framework ہے. When you or when some researcher, when I, you or some researcher, جب ہم modeling کی بات کرتے ہیں تو ہم ایک مخصوص سوچ رکھتے ہیں کہ ہم نے ایک پبلک پالیسی آبزرو کی, کوئی بھی پالیسی آبزرو کی, یہ کسی بھی فیلڈ میں چلے جائیں, میتھمیٹکس ہوگی, فزکس ہوگی, کوئی ایک چیز آبزرو کرتے ہیں کہ دس از سم تھنگ یونیک, یہ تو کوئی ایک ڈفرینٹ قسم کی چیز لگی ہے مجھے, یہ ہے کیا؟ دین یو گو بیک اینڈ اسٹڈی دیٹ تھنگ اینڈ دا ماڈلز ریلیٹڈ ٹو اٹ. اف یو تھنک دیر از اے ڈیفیشنسی ٹو اٹ, you come up with a better model try to come up with a better, you conceptualize a better model. کوئی بھی چیز آپ اب جب آبزرو کرتے ہیں, جب دیکھتے ہیں اور سمجھتے ہیں کہ جو ابھی تک جو اس کے ماڈلز ہیں, جو ان کو ایکسپلین کرنے کا طریقہ کار ہے, بتانے کا طریقہ کار ہے, اس میں یہ چیز نہیں ہے. اور ضرورت اس چیز کی ہے کہ اس جو مخصوص جو میں نے آبزرویشن کی ہے یا کسی ریسرچر نے آبزرویشن کی ہے, جو اس نے ایک چیز دیکھی ہے کہ ماڈل میں نہیں ہے اور اس کو ماڈل کے اندر لانے کی ضرورت ہے. دیٹ لیڈس ٹو اے کنسیپچلائزنگ آف اے ماڈل کہ جی اس ماڈل میں یہ چیز بھی ہونا چاہیے, اینڈ یو ہیو اے نیو امپروو ماڈل آن دیٹ. سو اٹس اباؤٹ کنسیپچلائزنگ اینڈ observing what might be missing in previous models and how we can improve upon it. Given that decision making in public policy is a complex process and that it affects the lives of millions of people, there is a need to understand the hows, whys, do's and don'ts of public policy. I think it's self-explanatory. We have gone through this stuff a lot. Don't need to go through it. That public policy, obviously, it's not easy. یہ تو جو بنا رہا ہوتا ہے اس سے پوچھے کہ کیا کچھ اس نے سوچنا پڑتا ہے. And I'm assuming here that the one who's making public policy really intends to improve the welfare of the people. So اس بیچارے کو جس چیز سے گزرنا پڑتا ہے, جتنی چیزیں اس کو دماغ پہ رکھنی پڑتی ہے کہ اچھا اگر میں پالیسی بنا رہا ہوں تو اس میں کیا کیا میں مد نظر رکھوں. It's not, believe me, it's not an easy task. میں نے آپ کو لیکچر کے شروع میں, اس کلاس کے شروع میں جب اپنا انٹروڈکشن کروایا تھا, میں نے بتایا تھا کہ میں نے پبلک پالیسی کو گورنمنٹ کے اس سے کافی قریب سے دیکھا ہے. یقین کریں بڑا مشکل کام ہے. 18 کروڑ لوگ ہیں, بلکہ اب تو شاید 19 کروڑ ہو گئے ہیں, جو کہ اور ان کے لیے پالیسی بنانی ہوتی ہے. اگر ایک قومی سطح کی پالیسی ڈیزائن کر رہے ہیں تو کیا کرنا ہے. اب 19 کروڑ لوگوں کے لیے, یہاں پہ تو 1 لاکھ لوگ اگر ہو تو مشکل ہوتا ہے کوئی پالیسی بنانا. تو جب 19 کروڑ لوگوں کی بات کر رہے ہیں, 18.5 کروڑ لوگوں کی, تو آپ سمجھ سکتے ہیں کہ اس میں کتنی کمپلیکیشنز ہیں. Thus, it becomes important to conceptualize a public policy problem in order to arrive at better conclusions for the future. اب میں نے بات کی کنسیپچلائزنگ کی, سوچنے کی کہ ایک ماڈل جو ہے, جب ہم اس کے بارے میں سوچتے ہیں کہ جی پرانا جو ماڈل ہے اس میں شاید یہ چیز نہیں ہے, تو مقصد کیا ہے؟ مقصد یہ ہے کہ ہم ایک چیز کو بہتر بنائیں, ایک ماڈل کو بہتر بنائیں. اس کا الٹیمیٹ ایم یہ ہے کہ جب اس ماڈل کو اپلائی کیا جائے گا تو اس کے ایک بہتر نتیجہ سامنے آئے گا. ہمارے پہلے جو نتیجے ہیں ان کے مقابلے میں بہتر ہوگا. فار ایگزامپل, اب یہ ایک مثال آ گئی. We know that the situation in Pakistan regarding education is pretty bad and there is a dire need to understand and improve it in terms of good public policy. Now, یہ ایک ایسی چیز تھی جو کہ ہمارے پریویو میں بھی آئی تھی جب میں کام کر رہا تھا گورنمنٹ کے لیے ایز اے پبلک پالیسی اینالسٹ, ایز این اکانومسٹ کام کر رہا تھا, کہ جو ابھی تک ایجوکیشن پالیسیز امپلیمنٹ کی گئی ہے, ہمیں کہاں اس میں سکسیز, ہمیں کہاں اس میں کامیابی حاصل ہوئی ہے, کہاں پہ ناکامی. زیادہ تر تو ناکامی تھی, کامیابی کم ہی تھی. Believe me, it was a very difficult exercise. I never thought it would be so difficult because there were so many things. There were teachers, there were students, there was government perspective, there were financial implications, financial constraints, there were administrative problems. کس قسم کی؟ مثال کے طور پہ administrative problem کہ جو بہت سے ٹیچرز ہیں وہ گاؤں کی سائڈ پہ جانا پسند ہی نہیں کرتے, رورل سائڈ پہ, اور وجہ یہ ہے کہ وہاں پہ کوئی بنیادی سہولتیں نہیں ہیں, نہ حکومت نے ابھی تک پرووائڈ کی ہیں. What I'm trying to say over here is that as I just talked about, it's a very difficult process. It's not easy. If you are just talking about education, I thought, oh, this would be easy. Education, we know all about the ingredients. We know that what would be education about. میرا خیال تھا کہ کیا ہوگا زیادہ سے زیادہ ٹیکسٹ بکس ہوں گی, کہ خرچہ کیا کرنا ہے, ٹیچرز کی تعداد بڑھانی ہے, ان کی تنخواہیں بڑھانی ہے, حکومت کو کوئی اچھا میکینزم لانا ہے کہ جی وہ ان کو مانیٹر کریں. No, it wasn't that easy. There were so many things that I had never even imagined. And it wasn't just related to economics, it was related to administration, it was related to finances, it was related to social سوشل کنسیپشن, سوشل مورس, کہ لوگوں کے کیا خیالات ہیں ایجوکیشن کے بارے میں. وائی ڈونٹ دے سینڈ اوور females to schools, for example. It was a very complicated process, as is in other public policies. So let us first conceptualize the problem in order to understand its working. Start with what's the problem. The present public policy, who are the participants in this sector? Can be government, can be the private sector, can be teachers, can be students. Who influences what? What are the standards and what are the procedures? Once all of these various variables are factored in, a researcher can come up with what he or she thinks is the way that the system works. Its problems, its outcomes, and its possibilities. These are all figured into a conceptual framework, which is called a model. آپ نے دیکھا کہ جو میں نے آپ کو مثال دی ایجوکیشن کی, اس میں اور کہ اس کو ماڈل کس طرح کیا جائے, اس کے بارے میں سوچا کس طرح جائے. تو پہلے آپ شروع ہوتے ہیں کہ اچھا ایجوکیشن میں مسائل کیا ہیں اور کون کون ہیں اس میں, وہ لوگ, وہ ایکٹرز, وہ ویریبلس جن کو ہم نے کنسیڈر کرنا ہے, جن کو ہم نے مد نظر رکھنا ہے. اب مثال میں نے آپ کو دی گورنمنٹ کی, پرائیویٹ سیکٹر کی, اساتذہ کی, اس میں اساتذہ کی یونینز بھی ہیں, پھر اسٹوڈنٹس کی, پھر اس میں پبلک ٹرانسپورٹ کا مسئلہ. بہت سے لوگ ہمیں پتہ چلا کہ اس لیے نہیں جاتے اسکول کیونکہ وہاں پہ پبلک ٹرانسپورٹ ہی نہیں ہے, اور جو علاقے, جو والدین بہت غریب ہیں, وہ اپنے بچوں کو اس لیے, وہ چاہتے ہیں کہ ان کے بچے اسکول جائیں لیکن جا اس لیے نہیں سکتے کیونکہ پبلک ٹرانسپورٹ ہے ہی نہیں وہاں پہ, وہ خود تو افورڈ کر نہیں سکتے. اب ان ساری چیزوں کے بارے میں جب آپ سوچیں گے تو آپ کے پاس یو کین رائٹ اٹ ڈاؤن, آپ لکھیں گے کہ اچھا یہ چیز ہے, اس میں یہ ہے. پھر آپ دیکھیں گے کہ اچھا اس چیز پہ اس سے پہلے کیا ریسرچ ہوئی ہے, کیا تحقیق ہوئی ہے, کیا نتائج آئے ہیں, کیا ان میں یہ ساری چیزیں ہیں جو کہ میں نے لکھی ہوئی ہیں. اب آپ جب سمجھتے ہیں, آپ جب کہ اس میں کوئی ایسی چیز جو کہ میں نے دیکھی ہے اور وہ نہیں ہے, جو آپ سوچتے ہیں کہ اس میں یہ چیز نہیں ہے, دین یو کم اپ ود اے ماڈل. میرے خیال میں ماڈل جو ہے اس میں یہ چیز, یہ کمی رہ گئی ہے, اس کو اگر انکلوڈ کیا جائے تو یہ ماڈل اچھا ہو سکتا ہے. پبلک پالیسی کے ماڈلز بھی اسی طرح ہوتے ہیں جیسا کہ ساری جگہ پہ ہوتے ہیں. فزکس ہو گئے, میتھمیٹکس ہو گئے, کوئی اور سائیکالوجی ہو گیا, اینتھروپالوجی ہو گیا, اکنامکس ہو گیا. جہاں پہ ہم ماڈلنگ کی بات کرتے ہیں تو بیسکس یہی ہے کہ آپ کنسیڈر کرتے ہیں کہ اس سے پہلے جو ماڈلز ہیں کیا ان کا نتیجہ اچھا رہا, کیا ان کا نتیجہ برا رہا, کیا اس میں کمی کیا تھی جو کہ میں نے دیکھی ہے یا ریسرچر نے دیکھی ہے جس کی وجہ سے اس کو مجبوراً ایک نئے اچھے ماڈل جو ہے وہ اس نے کنسیپچلائز کیا, اس نے سوچا اور کہا کہ جی یہ ماڈل دیکھتے ہیں, یہ اچھا ہے اس میں کیونکہ پہلے والے ماڈل میں یہ چیز نہیں تھی, اب اس ماڈل میں یہ چیز ہے. تو یہ پبلک پالیسی کے ماڈلز بھی جو ہیں بنیادی طور پر یہ ان کا کام یہ ہوتا ہے کہ اس سے پہلے جو پبلک پالیسیز امپلیمنٹ کی گئی تھی, کوئی بھی ہوگی, تعلیم کی ہوگی, صحت کی ہوگی, اس میں کیا کمی تھی, کیا چیز ایسی تھی جو کہ ان ماڈلز میں تھی نہیں, جس کا ذکر نہیں تھا اور جو کہ میرے ایک ریسرچر کے خیال میں ضروری ہے. That's what modeling is all about. Achha, now that we've gone through the basics of modeling, let us now turn to the question of importance of a model relating to public policy, or why do we need a model for public policy? Just what I was discussing. First of all, it helps us to understand more clearly what a particular public policy is aimed at. What are its outcomes? How it was implemented? What were the reasons behind designing and implementing a particular public policy? Was it really to help public? Was there some personal gain to it? Has it contributed negatively or has it contributed positively to the overall welfare of the country and its people? جو کہ ہم نے ابھی ایکس پوسٹ انالیسس کے بارے میں پڑھا تھا کہ کسی پبلک پالیسی کہ آخر میں اس کا ویلفیئر, اس کا رزلٹ کیا, اس کا نتیجہ کیا تھا. What was the end result in terms of welfare? That is what we are going to do a lot in public policy, and you are going to do a lot in the future. when you're talking about public policy or analyzing a public policy. A lot of it has to do with welfare gains. یہ اوور آل جو ہم جیسے کہتے ہیں کہ ویلفیئر کا کوئی ایک مطلب نہیں ہے, بہت سی چیزیں ہو سکتی ہیں. کیا اس میں کوئی امپروومنٹ آئی ہے؟ واز دیر اینی امپروومنٹ ان دا ویلفیئر اور دیر وازنٹ؟ ناؤ دس کوسچن از امپورٹنٹ. وائی شوڈ یو کنسیڈر اٹ؟ بیکاز ریمبر اگین دیٹ یو آر implement the government or anybody else who is implementing a policy. We are talking about, let's just talk about the government. When the government is implementing a policy, there is a cost to it. There is a cost to implementing that policy. It can be an administrative, financial, or whatever. So if in the end it turns out that the policy hasn't done anything, it was a useless policy, and it was in fact designed to make a few people gain something, then in that process welfare didn't improve, but what happened was that financial resources and other administrative resources, they were wasted. Time was wasted, money was wasted. اور پاکستان جیسے ملک کے لیے جہاں پہ ہمیشہ آپ کو پتا ہے کہ کوئی ریسورس کرنچ ہے, آپ ہمیشہ یہی سنتے ہیں, ہم بھی جب سے پیدا ہوا یہی سنتے آ رہے ہیں کہ وسائل نہیں ہے ہمارے پاس. تو جہاں پہ پھر اس قسم کے ممالک کی بات آتی ہے, اس قسم کی حکومتوں کی بات آتی ہے کہ جن کے پاس وسائل نہیں ہے, تو یہ بہت ہی ضروری ہے, انتہائی ضروری ہے کہ ایسی پالیسی بنائی جائے کہ جس کا ہمیں اندازہ ہو, جس کا ہمیں شیورٹی ہو, ہم لوگ کانفیڈنٹ ہو اس چیز میں کہ اس کا نتیجہ اچھا آئے گا. اوور آل جو ویلفیئر ہے, اٹ ول امپروو ڈیو ٹو دیٹ policy. It may very well be that a particular public policy was really well designed, like the hydropower production policy of yesterday's, but the problems arose due to the implementation, administrative, financial, and otherwise. The analysis of public policy helps to bifurcate the problem and come to a conclusion as to why a specific policy could not be implemented. Again, we kind of similar stuff that we've already gone through. I gave you the example of Neelam Jhelum hydro power production. I gave you the example of Neelam Jhelum hydropower project. Now that was part of the policy of power projection or power production from hydropower. That was way back in mid-1980s. Now overall it looked like a very good policy, and in fact many people suggest that yes, indeed it was a good policy. Because hydropower is cheap compared to other resources. جو ابھی تیل سے بجلی اتنی پیدا ہو رہی ہے وہ مہنگی اس لیے ہے بجلی کیونکہ وہ تیل سے پیدا ہو رہی ہے اور تیل مہنگا ہے. اس کے مقابلے میں اگر پانی سے پیدا کی جائے بجلی تو اس کی جو لاگت ہے وہ کافی کم ہے. So it was a good policy, but unfortunately none of the projected completion, none of the projects projected to be completed were completed. They are still languishing. Now what are the reasons for it? So one thing that you're doing with public policy and its modeling is that you're trying to understand why a particular public policy could not be implemented. کوئی کنکلوژن نکالنا چاہتے ہیں ہم, کوئی اس کا نتیجہ نکالنا چاہتے ہیں کہ اچھا آخر میں اب ہوا کیا. Now again, اگر آپ اس زمانے کی ہائیڈل پاور پالیسی کی گو تھرو کریں, اس کو پڑھیں. میں نے پڑھی تھی ایک ڈاکیومنٹ, ایک دستاویز میں نے پڑھی تھی, وہ بڑی اچھی دستاویز تھی, بڑی اچھی تھنکنگ تھی, بڑی اچھی سوچ تھی, لیکن دیکھ لیں ابھی تک وہ امپلیمنٹ نہیں ہو سکی. آخر میں اسی نتیجے پہ پہنچا ہوں کہ یا تو بہت سے لوگ تھے ان کا اپنا ذاتی مقصد تھا کہ اس چیز کو یہ پالیسی کامیاب ہی نہ ہو, اور دوسری طرف یہ تھے کہ مسائل ایڈمنسٹریٹو بھی تھے اور فائنینشیل بھی تھے جہاں پہ پیسہ نہیں تھا اس چیز کو کسی ایک پروجیکٹ کو بنانے کے لیے. سو یو کین کم ٹو اے کنکلوژن. ایک پرٹیکولر پالیسی ہے جو کہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ دس از ویری گڈ پالیسی, لیکن پتہ چلے کہ اس کے جب اس کو امپلیمنٹ کرنے کا ٹائم آتا ہے, اس کو لاگو کرنے کا ٹائم آتا ہے, تو پتہ چلتا ہے کہ وہ نہیں ہو سکتی. سو اٹس ناٹ جسٹ اباؤٹ کنسیپچولائزنگ, دین یو ہیو ٹو میک اٹ ورک ٹو. وہ بھی ایک آرٹ ہے جو کہ ہم پبلک پالیسی میں کور کریں گے اس انالیسس کو, پبلک پالیسی انالیسس کورس میں, کہ اگر آپ نے ایک پالیسی ڈیزائن کر ہی لی ہے, اف یو ہیو تھاٹ اباؤٹ اے پالیسی, then you also need to know how to go about that policy. उसको implement किस तरह करना है, पहले से एक analysis कर ले कि इससे पहले क्या problems आई थी और अब क्या आ सकती हैं. It helps us to separate the supply and demand side of the policies. It's easy to ignore one, put an emphasis on the other one, and come out with wrong conclusions. This will be seen later on in the paper on power sector in Pakistan, whereby we learn that there has been too much emphasis upon supply side with little or no analysis of the demand side or the consumer side problems. یہ ایک ہمارا شغل بن چکا ہے کہ ہر چیز جو ہے بلیم کرنا کہ حکومت یہ نہیں کر رہی, حکومت وہ نہیں کر رہی. دونوں سائڈس کو دیکھنا پڑتا ہے. ایز دے سے دیٹ یو ہیو ٹو لک ایٹ بوتھ سائڈس آف دا کوائن. اٹس ایزی ٹو بلیم دا گورنمنٹ فار ایوری تھنگ, بٹ ہاؤ اباؤٹ دا پاپولیشن, ہاؤ اباؤٹ دا ادر سائڈ, ہاؤ اباؤٹ دا پیپل. لیٹ می گیو یو اے ویری سمپل ایگزامپل, and this applies to you and to me, all of us, that only less than 1% or maybe percent, let's be optimistic, only 1% of people in Pakistan pay their taxes. Now, where is the problem? Let me ask you, where is the problem? Problem is not the government. They ask you to pay your taxes, but problem is the people. They hide their income. They don't want to pay their taxes. I'm not just talking about poor people. Forget the poor people for the moment when it comes to taxes. Lekin well-off people, the ones who can easily pay taxes, and tax rates are not very high, even they don't pay their taxes. So just thinking about one side کہ جی یہ حکومت جو ہے سارا قصور اس کا ہے, which is true. Successive governments in Pakistan over the years, they have done a lot of bad to this country and to its people. لیکن پھر آپ دوسری سائڈ کو بھی دیکھیں کیا آیا مسئلہ ادھر سے تو نہیں آ رہا, ادھر سے بھی کوئی مسئلہ ہے کہ نہیں ہے. جسٹ میں نے آپ کو ابھی اگزامپل دی, ابھی آپ کو میں نے ایک مثال دی کہ لوگ ٹیکس نہیں دیتے. اب اس میں بہت سے ایسے لوگ ہیں جو کہ پتہ چلا تھا کہ 2-3 دفعہ باہر ملک جا کے سیر بھی کر آتے ہیں لیکن ٹیکس دینا گوارا نہیں کرتے. تو دیکھیں یہ صرف حکومت کا مسئلہ نہیں ہے, حکومت کا تو مسئلہ ہی ہے, یہ لوگوں کی طرف کا بھی مسئلہ ہے. سو ون از دا سپلائی سائڈ, ون از دا ڈیمانڈ سائڈ. یو ہیو ٹو کیپ واچ آف بوتھ آف دم, یو ہیو ٹو تھنک آف بوتھ آف دم. تھرو انالیسس آف اے پرٹیکولر پالیسی ون کین کم اپ ود فالٹ لائنس even before the policy is being implemented. This is really important when one considers that a lot of resources go into implementing a policy, especially on mega scale. دیکھیں ابھی جو میں نے بات کی تھی کہ ایک ایسا ملک جس کے پاس ہمیشہ سے ہی وسائل کی کمی رہتی ہے, پاکستان کی میں بات کر رہا ہوں, تو اس میں پھر ایسے ملک کے لیے بہت ضروری ہے کہ جو تھوڑے بہت وسائل اس کے پاس ہیں حکومت کے پاس, اور اس چیز کے جو ہے ذرا خیال رکھے کہ اس کو بہترین طریقے سے کیسے بروئے کار لایا جا سکتا ہے. ان وسائل کو غلطی کی گنجائش کم ہوتی ہے. یہ فالٹ لائنز آئیڈینٹیفائی کرنی پڑتی ہیں کہ کہاں پہ فالٹ لائنز ہے. اس سے پہلے جو پالیسی امپلیمنٹ ہوئی تھی وہ کیوں کسی وجہ سے اگر نہیں امپلیمنٹ ہوئی تو کیا وجہ تھی, کس وجہ سے وہ فیل ہوگی. اٹس امپورٹنٹ ٹو کم اپ ود دس, اینڈ پبلک پالیسی انالیسس میں ہم یہی کریں گے. In this way, what public policy analysts could do is that they can help identify fault lines. For a country like Pakistan, which is almost always staffed for resources, it's critical that project policies are implemented after careful analysis so that little is wasted in terms of resources. Just what we were going through. It helps conceive new possibilities for research that one wouldn't have thought before. For example, during research in Pakistan's power sector, I learned that solar power, the much touted energy source, is not that efficient. اچھا میں نے ابھی آپ کو بات کی کہ I just told you کہ I worked with the government on a lot of issues related to public policy. اب ہم پاور سیکٹر کی بات کر رہے تھے کہ پاور سیکٹر میں ہمیں کتنے مسائل ہیں, اور جیسا کہ ابھی میں نے کہا بجلی اتنی مہنگی, ایک بڑی وجہ اس کی یہ ہے کہ وہ تیل سے پروڈیوس ہو رہی ہے جو کہ امپورٹ کیا جاتا ہے, باہر سے آ رہا ہے, اس وجہ سے مہنگی ہے. اب ایک جو حل اس کا ہے پرسیوڈ حل, اس کا یہ نکالا گیا کہ جی آپ سورج کی طاقت سے جو بجلی بنتی ہے, سولر پاور جسے کہا جاتا ہے, اس کو امپلیمنٹ کیا جائے اور وہ لگائی جائے. اب دیٹ از فائن, اور یہاں پہ تو پورا سال جو ہے اچھی خاصی سورج کی روشنی پاکستان میں ریسیو ہوتی ہے. مسئلہ کہاں پہ, مسئلہ یہاں پہ اٹس ناٹ سو سمپل. جب میں ریسرچ کر رہا تھا, یہ پیپر میں آپ کو بھی پڑھواؤں گا, جب میں ریسرچ کر رہا تھا اس میں یہ بات سامنے آئی کہ یہ بہت مہنگا طریقہ ہے بجلی پروڈیوس کرنے کا, تیل سے بھی زیادہ مہنگا ہے. اور جو اس کی ایفیشنسی ہے, یعنی جتنی وہ سورج کی توانائی آتی ہے اور اس کو کنورٹ کرتا ہے الیکٹریسٹی میں, تو وہ 20% بھی نہیں ہے. تو یہ چیزیں مد نظر رکھنی پڑتی ہے. اب جب آپ کیئرفل انالیسس کریں گے اس میں یہ چیزیں بہت سی سامنے آتی ہیں. ایک منٹ میں دیکھ لیتا ہوں. یار ابھی میں نے کیا کیا تھا, وہ یہ بند ہو گیا تھا, مجھے نہیں پتا تھا. اچھا اس کے بعد کا لیکچر میرا فل ہو گیا, وائنڈ اپ ہو گیا, میں نے ختم کر لیا. اچھا پھر میں اینڈنگ کرتا ہوں.
آپ سمری کی ایک سلائڈ بنایا کر, اس میں جو پورا پڑا اس کے سارے پوائنٹس کو ایک دفعہ بتا دیں کہ آج
وہ دراصل جو لاسٹ ٹائم انہوں نے مجھے بتایا تھا وہ یہ تھا کہ آپ جب نیکسٹ لیکچر شروع کرتے ہیں تو اس میں آپ نے سمرائز کرنا کہ پچھلے لیکچر میں ہم نے کیا پڑھا. اچھا اینڈ میں بھی کرنا, چلیں ٹھیک ہے. میں ویسے ہی بتا دیتا ہوں, نہیں اس میں تو نہیں ہے, میں ویسے ہی بتا دیتا ہوں. ٹھیک ہے. That's the end of today's lecture. That's the end of what we will be talking about today. I hope we listened to one of the podcasts. First of all, we went through some of the modern history of this public policy and how it began as public sciences as advocated by Henry Lasswell. Then I took you through a real world public policy example, a very interesting one. I really hope you enjoyed, and that was about the United States Mint and the coins that they produced, which turned out to be a very bad public policy. After that, we went through modeling, the basis of modeling, why we need a model, and what are the public policy models aimed at. So I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Until next time, take a break and have a safe one. Thank you.